thanks so much for joining me on the show here. I learned about you after interviewing Marty Isenberg about his Wes Anderson jazz project. And I shared with him that I was listening to the album with my son, and we were commenting about the different I kept saying to my son, I was saying, wow, how many people does he have on this album? He's got like all these singers, and he was going, Dad, it's one person. It's a woman. It's one woman singing all this. I said, what are you talking about? So, you just have your range and your attack is wide and varied. It's really enjoyable. You've got a wonderful voice, and I'm so grateful for you joining me today. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for saying all that. Yeah, I feel like my versatility is a gift and a curse, you know?
Interesting thought. What do you mean by that?
Well, I feel like, being able to sing in a lot of different styles and actively pursuing that,
Right.
singing in a lot of different styles, I think can, put you in this sort of position where it's kind of like, well, what do you do? And which unfortunately has a lot of currency in just like a practical sense. So
Right.
I think my aspiration is to like carve out a space for myself that transcends genre, if I may be so bold.
Okay.
That's my aspiration, right? That it's not really about like the specific genre. It's more of just like musical sensibilities that sort of like exist like throughout genres.
Sure. And I feel that, with your album too, there's a little bit of this, there's a little bit of that, but the arrangements, and we'll get to some of that, but I feel like you certainly make an attempt to do that, and you don't want to be boxed in, and that's a good thing. But of course, commercial marketability is sometimes doesn't like that so much. But bring us back to, the sound of the album. You've got a lot of different sounds. One of the things that I wanted to say to you is I can kind of suss out a lot of your influences. I hear some Bacharach, I hear some Muscle Shoals in there a little bit, some Stax going on, and Billy Joel kept coming up for some reason in my brain. But what was sort of your goal for the sonic thumbprint of this thing? What were you guys sat down to try to get a sound, and what were you aiming for?
Well, the way the songs were written, basically I would write them on keys and voice and then bring them into my rhythm section, and then we would work those out in that format. And then on top of that, Simon Haynes came in and did all the strings, horns, the brass, harp, pedal steel. Like he
Right.
arranged all that stuff, which definitely is coming from that Burt Bacharach world. Absolutely. And like Ennio Morricone, like that whole world.
Right.
That's where he lives. So yeah, I think within that process, I have my own influences just in terms of the songwriting, and they come from so many eras and genres. But for this album, I was really kind of imagining sort of like the Carole King kind of approach, maybe like a mini Ripperton, like just a lot of like kind of like 60s, 70s artists that I really, really love. And then complementing that with the arrangements to fit.
Okay,
The
cool.
era.
And so you're the primary songwriter. You wrote all the songs here?
Yes.
And I liked your usage of the Wurlitzer keyboard. That was a choice, right? Kind of a Donny Hathaway thing happening there.
Yeah.
How come you kind of decided to go a Wurlitzer? And I was enjoying it. I have my own Wurlitzer just across the room there, and I love the sound of that keyboard. But I kept waiting for you to kind of step away from it for some reason. I am impressed and glad at your commitment to the Wurlitzer keyboard. So was there any talk about using that throughout the album, or were somebody saying, hey, maybe, play an acoustic piano here instead? Or tell me about your relationship with that keyboard.
Well, I will add that there is some piano, just straight piano, on the album that was played by amazing pianist Noah McNeil. But yeah, I wrote everything kind of on like Rhodes or like a Wurlitzer, and it just felt like, I just feel like the voicings and what I'm writing, it doesn't work as well on piano. Like I just don't, I feel like it often to me feels like slightly hollow, like it's just not you know, maybe if I were a better pianist, I could really make a piano sing. That could be like a goal for me one day. But like where I'm at, the way I'm writing it, I feel like the character of a Wurlitzer really like suits the arrangements and the voicings that I'm using a lot better. Plus, like you said, it does kind of harken to that era, the kind of Donny Hathaway vibe. And I feel like it lends, like having it be such a solid thread throughout the album helps to characterize the album really as a singer-songwriter album in my mind, because like I often will do these songs just solo.
Right.
You know, so like having that in there always, you know, sometimes the Wurlitzer is more forward, sometimes it's like more in the background, but always having it in there to me just really relates back really literally to like the practical way that I interact with the songs and that I'm thinking about the songs.
Right. And you're a great keyboard player, and folks should check out, you've got a few videos on YouTube where you've got some really, I don't know where those, that concert was. I think it was somewhere in New York. You had some folks playing with you. It was really, really cool stuff. I'm sure you'd be a lot of fun to see live. Do you bring the Wurlitzer with you? Do you play a keyboard? What would someone expect when they come to see you live? You said you're playing, maybe hopefully if the weather holds out, you'll be playing tonight, but what would someone who's going to see you tonight expect?
Well, here, I'll sort of answer that question with answering question I want to answer, which is on Thursday, I have my album release show at Joe's Pub. So there I will be playing a grand piano.
Okay.
But I'm going to have a string quartet with me.
Nice.
So generally for me, just because I'm a practical gal, if there is not like an instrument where I'm playing that I really like and like feel like I connect with, then usually I will be playing my Nord. I have a Nord Electro 6D, which is an upgrade from my old Nord. I had like a 2, I think. And that really just works for me. It's like lightweight. I like the sounds.
Right.
It's not a Wurlitzer, sadly. I wish it was. Like maybe one day it would be a real Wurlitzer and I'd lug it around, but
it's as
for now
close it's as close as you can get without having the real thing. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So tell me, let's step back a little further even. Tell me just a little bit about yourself, where you're from. How did you kind of get into music? A lot of times I have a lot of biographical information about someone and I don't know too much about you. So I'm just curious. I'm sure our audience might be curious too. Where did you grow up? Where did you get your connection to music?
Yeah, so I grew up in central Maine, in rural Maine.
Okay.
And my dad was a lawyer and my mom was a painter, like an oil painter, and she did like pastels and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And my brother was really into music. I had an older brother who like went to Maine jazz camp. I have to bring this up. It's so important because there was not a lot of music where I grew up. Like there is some great music there, but it's not a huge diversity of music, right? There's kind of like a limited, like what is available there just because of the population density,
absolutely,
etc.
Yes.
There's not a lot happening. So as a kid, going to the jazz camp, that my brother went to,
right?
It would be like a week, a year. And I would work with like Christine Correa and all these incredible people, these amazing musicians that make their way up to Maine to do that camp. If anybody listening has any kids that are even remotely musical or even sort of cool, just send them to this camp. It's amazing. They always need funding too. If you want to send them money, please send them money. Because it really changed the course of my life. Like going to that camp and making music with them and like talking about music and like really getting into, what that life is like. Like, what is your life like when you're kind of like devoted to something in that way? When you can like dedicate your life to that thing. And practically speaking, there's a lot of struggle. There's a lot of like, how do I get gigs? Like, how do I get work? Like, it's tough. But for me, I think that was just really appealing. This idea, like, I could just like kind of devote my life to this and make this my life's work. And that would be like a good use of my life.
Right. Well, and kids need that opportunity to hear that message too, because you really, the idea of being a musician is so intangible for a kid, and even for a young adult, and even for an adult for that matter. What does it mean? How, what does define being a musician? So I could see that being very informative to a kid. It must have been very valuable for you.
Yeah, I mean there was so much content in there. I would like get assignments that I could work on, like records to listen to throughout the year. And I had voice lessons. I would study like classical and like musical theater, which I'm sure you can hear in my singing still.
Yeah.
But I really like, in terms of material, I was listening to records a lot. I was learning from records. So I was listening to like Sarah Vaughan and like Chet Baker, and a lot of at that age it was really all about jazz for me. And then as I went to college, I went to New England Conservatory for jazz performance for voice, and there I actually got exposed to more like soul and R&B music,
Mm.
and have worked over the last decade a lot more in that genre. And yeah, I think that made sense to me, like just coming a little bit later, like out of my favorite jazz era into this amazing era of like singer songwriters who have just so much like the harmony is so wonderful, like the songs are so well written. Like I feel like the way we conceptualize those genres is that they're like really separate, but actually like a lot of those singers would kind of operate between those two genres at that time, and I just feel
Right.
like that makes a lot of sense to me. Not that this is really a jazz album, but like just in terms of how I think about like music and writing and like interpreting a melody.
Well, quarterly, like, composition wise, I kept sort of grappling with that myself when I was listening. I was like, well, this is a jazz record. I mean, and I guess I had had the introduction with the Marty Isenberg thing, so I knew you kind of had a jazz, thing going on.
Yeah.
But really, a lot of your chord changes, the songwriting, the compositional stuff is very interesting, and it did remind me of, now you had, as you mentioned, you do have strings on here, you've got horns on here, you've got a lot of different sounds going on. So you do have that uh, larger compositional feeling, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But you could see this in some kind of a big band setting, I think, really, even though they're not, I mean, what's jazz? You know what I mean?
Totally.
It's a structure. You've got these clever structures, these clever chord changes, these unexpected turns in these tunes that would really lend themselves to an even in my opinion, an even larger jazz setting, and musical theater too. Just as you mentioned, I mean, a couple of times I went, "Ooh, that sounds like it's
It's very
watching a show."
theatrical.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are definitely theatrical moments there for sure. So so you're doing this Joe's Pub thing, and unfortunately, when people listen to this show, the gig will probably be over.
Oh, okay. Oops.
That's okay. They should know. Hey, it's
I
great
have the
work.
rest of the tour anyway coming up.
Yeah, well, usually I end with that. But are you going to have the same personnel? Are you going to have the same people with you? The rest. What's the plan? The path for the album? Where are we going with this here next?
Um, for the rest of the tour, I will be doing it mostly trio with Pete Moffat on drums and Matt Aronoff on bass. And then I'll be doing some of the West Coast dates. I'll be adding Kaz on saxophone, kind of speaking to this, genre divide. A lot of my East Coast shows are more like singer-songwritery spaces, and a lot of my West Coast shows, for whatever reason, are more jazz spaces.
Mm.
So yeah, like you're saying, some of those songs we do open up. We'll say like, solo section is this, and kind of like extend the forms and try to open up those songs a little bit.
Right. I don't have the album here to hold up to look at, but the cover image is great. We can sneak that cover image in, and you've got a great pantsuit in the grass, and it's a really cool cover. Can you tell us a little bit about where you took that? Who the photographer was?
Yes, that photographer, Kirsten Noel, she's an incredible photographer who I've done shoots with in the past. She's based in the San Francisco Bay Area. And yeah, we just brought in like a bunch of different vintage outfits and just kind of had fun throughout the city. And that was kind of like on the top of a hill, I think in the East Bay.
Okay.
somewhere like maybe outside of Oakland. And yeah, it was a film shot. And I don't know, something about it I just felt like was really evocative of the sound of the album to me, like just the era, but like it's not too literal. Like it's not like in my mind, like the way it's styled is not like so literal. Like I'm not actually trying to convince you this is a vintage album, which I think is also true in the way it's mixed.
Right.
But mostly just like that kind of feeling of vastness. I feel like that was a big goal in the arrangements and the writing and everything, that there's a lot of moments where to me it just feels like really wide open. And so that's another reason why I really liked that photo for the cover, because I just feel like it's communicated.
No, I think it does. Pages of Mine is one of my favorites on the album. You tell us a little bit about that tune?
Oh, Pages of You.
What did I say? Oh, by the way, I have it written correctly here in front of me. I just read it and said the wrong thing. Pages of You. Here, look, I'll start over. Pages of You is a favorite of mine. Can you tell us a little bit about that number?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love that you like that. I'm really curious to find out like what songs stick out to people. Yeah, that song, I'm not sure like legally how much I'm allowed to say about why that song's written. I think it's fine. It was a few years
I'm
ago.
okay with it, I think.
So I was like I was maybe going to be on The Voice, and it didn't work out. But
Okay.
basically, I spent a month there, um, kind of just like being like, what am I doing here?
Right.
So yeah, that's what the song
That's
is
what the song's
about.
about. Okay. There you go. The Voice, yeah. Well, that's a long time. So you must have been pretty far along in the process. A month.
Um, yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know how that works. I don't know how. My sister-in-law tried to get on American Idol once, and actually we have a good family friend, Jackie Tone, who's a wonderful actress. She was on
yeah.
American Idol a long time ago. But what's the why was it a whole month? How does that? Can you are you allowed to tell us?
I see. That's the thing. I don't like remember. I'm sure I signed something. I mean, who cares? Like, I really don't think they're gonna like sue me. Although I do remember one line in the contract that's like, "We will sue you for $1 million if you do
What?
this."
All
Which
right. Well, let's neither of us
one
get
million.
sued for
It doesn't
$1 million.
matter though. No, basically they scouted me and they asked me to come out. I was there in a hotel for a month, but I
Wow.
never got to sing at all. So I was just in a
Interesting.
hotel. They
Wait,
actually give you voice lessons. They like gave me voice lessons. I just like worked out a lot.
that's a long time. I'm just captivated by how long it was that you had to kind of
I
wait around.
know.
So it was a good opportunity to write some tunes, and you got a great song out of it.
Yeah. I mean, well, thank you. Thank you so much. But I think you kind of hear it in a lot of those lyrics will make more sense now if you listen to it again.
Well, I'm definitely that's what I'm going to do right after this interview. I'm going to listen to that and try to suss it out because yeah, that wouldn't have occurred to me
Yeah.
in my usual listening. Was there a song on the album that you felt turned out really well that you're really proud of when you listen to this record? Is there a high water mark on the album for you personally?
There is, and it's actually not one of the singles, but this song to me, I'm so proud of this song. Nothing's Wrong. I
Okay.
just think it's like the best song I've ever written. And yeah, that's the one for me.
That's the one for you. And how about the arrangement and production of that one? Is that you just like the song or you like the way it turned out or both?
I like the way it turned out. It's a little bit like clunky. It's a
Hmm.
little bit like, because I kind of mess with the time and then the strings have to follow me in the time. And it's kind of clunky in this way that I really enjoy. Like, it's not metronomic at all. It's the only song on the album that really does that kind of like pushes and pulls the time that in a almost like uncomfortable kind of way.
Interesting.
Um, but yeah, I think I just love. I don't even know how I wrote that song. I mean, I just like. I really like that. I never perform it either. Like I don't. I never play it with my band. I don't know why. I think maybe I should.
Well, if it's one of your favorites, I would suggest you consider that possibility.
Yeah.
You mentioned a fella's name who did some of the arranging, I guess, and you're just mentioning the strings and the horns. And again, for our audience who maybe haven't heard the album yet, and you should listen to it, you'll hear a lot of different sounds, a lot of instrumentation happening. So did this person, it was all different players, or sometimes I know sometimes you get one person that can play everything and they kind of overdub, but who, that was the arranger, you mentioned his name, John something?
So the person who did the arrangements of all the extra instruments, as you mentioned, is Simon Haynes.
Okay, I don't know where I got John.
I think John Haynes might be his dad's name, actually.
I don't think I was
He's a
talking about his
drummer
dad.
in the Bay. I think that's right. Yeah, Simon. So I've worked with Simon for 10 years now. We're in a band together called Tradici Baci.
Mm.
So I sing, basically he writes and arranges everything in it, and I just sing in it. But I love that band, and I know what an amazing composer and arranger Simon is from all of those years of work. So it was really easy to trust him with these songs.
Okay. And did you do any of that live, or did you just kind of overdub all that stuff?
Um, yeah. So we finished the rhythm section tracks at like the end of 2019. So
Mm.
then right after that, I know
Yeah.
we all know what happened, but
Yeah.
yeah, there was a lot of overdubbing. I mean, we were lucky to get like, strings to play in the same room and stuff like that, which I think is really important.
Right.
And yeah, we had specialists on every instrument. We didn't have any like jack of all trades who was just recording everything. We got some really amazing people on the album. Actually, you know what? Oh my gosh. Wait, I have a copy right here. Hold
Go
on.
ahead. I love this.
I'm gonna
Show
get
and
it.
tell.
Okay, I'm back.
Nice.
Here it is. Sorry, it's
There it
shiny.
is. There's the picture we were talking about in out in Frisco. Morning.
That's right. Here's the back. Alexandra Toth did the album design. She did a great job. And yeah, so we had actually, speaking of San Francisco, we had kind of an East Coast crew and a West Coast crew.
Oh,
Just logistically, that's how it worked out on different songs.
I've heard of that before. I know I spoke with jazz singer Jane Monheit, who's a
Yeah,
terrific jazz singer, and she kind of has a West Coast crew, when she goes to the West Coast, people that she plays with, and then she's got her East Coast people that she relies on the East Coast. So, because it's expensive to move everybody it's expensive enough for you to go from one coast to the other, right? But
it
to move the whole
is.
group, it's an added expense.
It is. And yeah, Simon and I both have connections out in the Bay. So we were both out there for an amount of time at the same time during the pandemic. So it was like, why not get a session together and record some strings? And Chris Grady did trumpet. That's right. Oh, yeah. And then we had Kevin Newton and Andy Strain do French horn and trombone. That was remote. They did that remotely. So a little bit of remote stuff. Mary Lou Donovan on harp. She was amazing.
Yes,
Aaron
that
Edgecombe
harp.
on
I heard
vibraphone.
that harp. I went, whoa, we got everything but the kitchen sink in here. Let's listen to this harp.
I love harp, man. I should have been a harp player. Harp is the coolest instrument. Oh,
Harp is really cool. There's this woman on Instagram. I want to say her name is Amanda Whiting. Am I crazy? I don't know. I could be wrong about that.
okay.
And I've been following her on Instagram, and she's so cool. She's a British harpist, and she does all kinds of different things. And I've been wanting to reach out and do an interview with her because I think she's really great. But you're
Yeah.
right. I love the harp. I think the harp is underrated.
Yeah, harp. Who am I thinking? What is that album like? Afro harping? What is that?
Dorothy Ashby.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, those are
What's cooler than that? I mean,
those are
like,
great.
name me something that's more cool than that.
No,
Okay.
there's nothing cooler than that. And you talked about musical theater. I love if you know the show The Fantastics, they have it's a great piano. Most of the arrangements is piano and harp. It's just a great sound.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, check
Fantastic.
that out.
Cool.
Check that out. So speaking of your vinyl record there, do you have an affinity for vinyl? Are you interested in that format, or is it just obviously you see I am, but how do you feel about vinyl? How does it feel for you to be on record there?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say I'm like a big like gear nerd in general. Like I'm not like, like super obsessed, but it just feels obvious to me that when I hear like an album on vinyl, like it just sounds better. Like I
Right.
don't know, it doesn't feel like my opinion. It just feels like a fact. Like it just sounds better when I hear my own music, especially on vinyl. Maybe it's because I'm, you know, inspired by so much music, from the 60s and 70s. Like when I hear myself on vinyl, I just feel like I'm just like, I did it.
Right.
It feels like I achieved something in the way that like an MP3, I don't think has ever made me feel that way.
No, no, no. Did you get a chance to hear that on a really good system, or maybe you're still waiting for that moment?
I listened to it on my own system, which is okay. It could use an upgrade, but I'm still just so happy nonetheless. Like even on the worst system, like I would rather hear it than like
You
on
know what
a
you should do?
CD.
You should take it to one of the hi-fi stores in New York City where they have a serious setup and just say, "Hey, listen, this is my album. Do you mind?" They would love it. I bet they would
Yeah.
freak out and they would put it on some
Aw.
$150,000 system and then you could really and then you'll the tears will
I'll
probably
just cry.
the,
Is there one you really like? Is there like in Brooklyn? Do you
there
know?
are a few. Let me look something up and maybe I can email you or something.
Okay. Yeah, let
Yeah.
me know.
So the song "Right in the Middle" is your epic track on the album. I feel. Can you tell us about that one? It's a really big one.
Yeah, thank you. So that's kind of a funny song because it was really written. I was on tour and I just thought it was like a sort of nice image, like a nice thought, this kind of thing of like feeling like a very transient person, like feeling like everything's like a little gray, like you're kind of just like passing through.
Mm,
And just, what a comfort it is, like just those like in between moments, just like thinking of someone,
right.
someone special.
Someone special.
And yeah, just like like that feeling of like carrying that person with you even when they're far away. So that's what the song is about. I actually just finished a music video for that once again last night. Last night was a big night, okay? So there will eventually be a video coming out for that. And yeah, I something about, I don't know, maybe it's hard for me to put into words, but it's some kind of like magic. Like it's just some kind of, I don't know. I feel like a lot of us like kind of just walk around in our daily lives and it's very like one thing.
Mm.
And I don't know, I'm really interested in also in like sort of just a spontaneous kind of like radical joy.
Well, the magic is your vocal riffing on that song. That's what I think.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. That's where the magic is coming from. Well, and so this album officially it comes out this Friday, and congratulations on it. It sounds great. I'm so glad to connect with you because I knew I wanted to talk to you after I heard Marty's project, and we had actually connected. And then coincidentally, Stephanie Weiss, who's a fabulous PR agent, she had you on her list, and I went, "Wait a minute, I know that name."
Great. Yeah, Stephanie's cool.
Yeah, she's cool. So I'm so glad it came full circle, and I wish you all the best on the new album. And what before we leave, is there anything we want to tell the audience where we're going to be, where we're going, where they should go, what they should do? What should they do?
Yes, please, please. Well, you actually cannot order the vinyl online, but you can order CDs through Sunnyside if you're interested. But you can buy the vinyl from me at the shows that I'm going to do, just sort of indefinitely, but specifically for my album release tour, I'm doing dates in New York City, obviously, Cambridge, Egremont, Mass, Rangeley, Maine, Portland, Maine, Woodstock, New York, Philadelphia, Portland, Oregon, and then San Francisco, San Jose, San Luis Obispo, San Diego, LA. So if you're anywhere there, oh, and then one show in DC. So please come out and please take some of this vinyl because it's taking up my whole apartment.
I love this idea that, well, I don't know. Well, I love it, but it's also, if I were a fan and I wanted to get my hands on a copy of that, you'd have to go to the concert. I like you're not selling it online. You can't just go on Amazon and pick this up. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. It's mostly that I just don't want to deal with it, but
Yeah.
it's also like I'm a performer first and foremost. I love this recording. I'm very proud of it, but yeah, come to the show.
And you're going to schlep these all around to the gigs, all around on airplanes and stuff?
I will. I might have to like mail some. I don't know. We're going to have to figure that out. It's going to suck a little bit, but I'll figure it out.
I like it. I like it. You're keeping it real. You're keeping it true. I like that. Buy it at the show, you lazy people. Come on, get out there. Sami, thank you so much. Congratulations on the album. All the best with it. I appreciate the time you spent with me today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Evan. Thanks for having me.